Hi, my name is Brianna Correa, and today we're going to be talking about one of America's greatest classics, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, otherwise known as Samuel H. Clemens. Today we'll not be only talking about the escapist motif within the novel, but about how it relates to the period and also to its author. In America, there are two very notable classics, The Great Gatsby and Huckleberry Finn. Today we're not going to be talking about this. If you really want to know about the summary, watch John Green's Crash Course. Today we're going to be talking about Huckleberry Finn and its author, Mark Twain. Twain was born in Hannibal, Missouri, where he not only became a notable journalist, but also a pilot of a steamboat, and in his later years, after marrying his abolitionist wife, a writer. His most notable novel being Huckleberry Finn, though very controversial. But it's not that controversial. Huckleberry Finn is a tale of a young boy and his many adventures. However, as the novel progresses, it takes a darker turn when the slave Jim of Miss Watson goes and escapes with Huckleberry Finn and travels down the Ohio River to be left in slave country. Today we're not only going to be looking at the physical escape that takes place in this novel, but also the mental escape from Huckleberry Finn, but also how our own writer of Twain decided to escape from his own novel. Let's go to the thought bubble.
Huck's stuck in a very scary world in which he has to make a few decisions on what he is supposed to devote his life to. See, Huck is stuck between four different kind of boundaries, whether he should be civilized and go live with Miss Watson, or if he should be obeying his father, not to mention whether his heart and emotions should be weighing out over law and his own civilized background as a Southerner.
Huck has to abide by quite a few rules in order for him to make his own decision about slavery, that being both his own father, Miss Watson, and the law itself. However, as the novel comes to a close, we see that Huck's made this decision. He's decided to feel that Jim is a person, and by doing so has defied these three things, much like in the situation with Romeo and Juliet, where if they had simply done this, they would have avoided disaster. Starting off with, we need to look at the three divisions in this novel of escape as a motif. To begin with, we're going to be looking at the mental part, in which we see Huck having to have an internal struggle between what he knows is right and what he's been brought up with. In looking at these two perspectives, he has to not only be walking down the middle, but making his own decisions without an adult telling him what to do. And the society he's been brought up in has warped his own perception of consciousness.
A book of mine where a sound heart and a deformed conscience come into collision and conscience suffers defeat.
To begin with, we are going to be looking at an example of when Huck questions religion, which at a time was extremely controversial because it meant questioning authority and asking parents what it really meant for you to have a religious background. And by this, we see Huck breaking out of the conformity of his own society. And this foreshadows for later in the novel, when Huck questions the institution of slavery and other such problems in their society. But we can't not forget to address the actual physical escape, in which Huckleberry Finn's running away from an abusive father and is taking Jim with him, who's running away from an institution that would degrade him lesser than a man. And by this, we see them going down the Mississippi River, in which they're escaping a part of their lives in which they would be punished for being different and not conforming with the rest of society.
We went sneaking down the slope of it labored, in dark, towards the Texas, feeling our way slow with dark. We couldn't see no sign of them.
And finally, we need to be looking at Mark Twain himself, who in his own novel avoided the biggest question that he brought up, whether slavery as an institution was moral or not. Twain himself grew up in a society where slavery was still around and people were okay with it and justified it through science and religion and other such things. However, it's even more so that Twain had a battle over his book, whether he wanted people to have this question on their minds or whether he wanted readers. Twain knew when he was writing this book that he had to write to a larger audience than who he knew were going to be abolitionists. He couldn't just be William Lloyd Garrison, who spoke outwardly about slavery. He had to have a reserved voice and give out his theme without scaring his own public. And that's why I think this novel doesn't really pack the punch it ought to have. Because it was trying to appeal to people who wanted to not only read the book, but to people who really believed that slavery was wrong. Oh look, we got mail. Let's see what it is this week. Ah, open letter to emo children. But just teenagers in general. Teenagers go through a period in their life when they have to make some hard decisions and choose some really difficult paths. An open letter to teenage angst. You think you have some very difficult problems. You want to be a unique little snowflake that has their own individuality. But at the same time, you want to have lots of friends, go to lots of parties, have lots of girlfriends. You're much like our Huckleberry Finn. He not only wants to abide by his own country's motto of being a slave state, but at the same time wants to make his own conscious decisions. In that way, he's very much like the teenage kids of these days. Due to Mark Twain leaving his last 12 novels missing things, a lot of readers are left unsatisfied, and thus these few questions start coming to mind. Is Huck making his own decisions, or is he letting the society influence him? Did Mark Twain achieve what he wanted, or could he address slavery in a deeper sense? And finally, does escapism really solve anyone's problems? Thanks for watching, and as I say in my hometown, do your annotations.